This is the Waupaca County Board of Supervisors meeting.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. I will call this Waupaca County Board of Supervisors annual session and public hearing for the 2019 budget and 8521 transportation services to order. Please press your roll call button.
Roll call shows 25 present, 1 vacant, 1 absent.
Clerk Lodewagen, has the open meeting statement been distributed?
Yes, it has.
Thank you. Today, when we stand for a silent meditation and a pledge, I'm sure most of you heard we lost another one of our family members here, retired Supervisor Jim Flink, yesterday. Jim had been doing pretty well. Of course, he just lost a son, lost his wife a while back, and he died suddenly yesterday. So Jim was a true county board supervisor here for, I think, 33 years. He was elected in 1977 and retired in 2010. He was on the highway committee and the chair of the law enforcement for many, many years. And once you knew Jim, he was a friend forever. And he actually picked Mr. Muck to succeed him. And so you got big shoes to fill for a long time, Lee.
35 years.
35 years.
I'll be 105 when they get done.
I don't know any of the arrangements yet. I didn't see any on the internet so far, printer arrangements, but stay tuned for that. So when we stand for silent meditation, please remember Jim and his family in our prayers and thoughts. Please stand. Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Okay, we have the agenda before you, and over the internet. Is there a approval of the agenda? Mr. Ellis?
I would like to move to approve the agenda with the addition of, I don't think anywhere I saw anything about Veterans Day, the 100th anniversary of that on Sunday. I just got through a 1,000-mile round trip to dedicate a memorial, which had a number of names on it who were friends of mine. And based on that, looks like Waupaca County ignores veterans at this point. I know today isn't the 11th of November. There should be some note either here or as part of our pledge that talks about that. That's a big day, 100 years of it. Packers come and go, so does deer hunting. But Veterans Day is the most important fall thing to me.
Thank you, Mr. Ellis. Well said. And I was going to approach that on my report later on.
Thank you.
But thank you. That's a good point.
Well, so Supervisor Ellis, knowing that Chair Kappen will address Veterans Day, are you withdrawing your motion to add it on?
No, I would be happy to approve the agenda as written.
As written.
I just stuck that in because I just got back.
Got your
I
platform.
got back a few hours ago.
Welcome, thank you. So we need a second on the agenda.
Supervisor Lair.
Second.
And there's a motion, a second by Supervisor Lair. Any questions or discussion? Please vote.
Supervisor Fleece, did you want to speak or did we catch? Okay, we just didn't put that on. Supervisor Ellis?
Right now I have, oh, there we go.
Last chance to vote.
Thank you.
Passes 25-0.
Okay, number 6, we'd like to approve the minutes of the meeting of 10/30/2018. Mr. Smith?
I move we open a public hearing. Hold on, sorry, they approved the minutes.
Mr. Smith approves the motion for approve the minutes. Mr. Moore?
I second that motion.
And a second by Mr. Moore. Questions or discussion? Please vote.
Last chance to vote. Minutes carried 25-0.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to open the public hearing on the proposed 2019 budget and 8521 transportation services. I will call 3 times for anyone wishing to speak, and you should register your name and address. And if you do wish to speak, you come up to the podium and you'll be given 3 minutes to express your opinions or whatever you'd like to say. So, is there anyone that'd like to speak? Oh, I'm sorry. Mr. Smith?
Now I'd like to make that motion, to open a public hearing.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Mr. Zog?
I will second that.
Okay, we do have a motion second by Mr. Zog, a second, to open the public hearing. We'll have to vote. Please vote.
Last chance to vote. Motion carries 25-0.
Okay, as I said, I'll say it again, that we will entertain people. We do have one person here that's signed, Janet Riley, Ogdensburg, and you please come to the podium and you'll be given 3 minutes to talk. Yes, right up here.
I'll call you back later.
Is that for me?
Yep.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
A little chilly out there today. My hands are still warming up. I'd like you all to spend a moment.
If you could start, ma'am, with your name and address.
I'll get to that if that's all right. I just want to start for a moment having everyone in here think of a time when you weren't feeling great. Maybe you were the family member of the supervisor who passed away. Maybe you're down with the flu or you're just not feeling well. And someone reached out to you, brought you a casserole, invited you out for a meal. I see one of the supervisors today, after a stressful meeting, has brought snacks for those of us, or those of you who will partake. It's well known that food and comfort are associated with each other, and that was the reason that the senior nutrition program was developed, to provide socialization, comfort, safety, as well as nutrition for people who could come to a congregate site or for those that were homebound. Now I want to imagine if you have brown hair. I'm not sure where I would qualify because I have brown, blonde, gray, every color hair, but those of you who have brown hair, imagine that you are no longer allowed that privilege in life. You are not able to receive that comfort, that safety, that congregate meal, that socialization. Thinking like that is how the people in the District of Manawa feel. A premeditated decision was made. Our meal site manager left almost a year ago. It was never replaced. She was never replaced. The site was found to be inadequate for multiple reasons. The people in the community rallied together. We went to the Commission on Aging, and after the August meeting where that was announced, and the Commission on Aging said, you have a month to gather your resources, and come up with solutions, which we did. We found 4 to 6 people who would be meal site managers. We found 2 or 3 other alternate sites. We found ways to encourage participation, but we were still kind of shut down and nothing's been done. So we feel discriminated against. So my first point is that we ask, when you look at the budget for next year, that you include equitable services to all areas of Manawa for senior nutrition. All of us get budget cuts. We in our personal lives understand that we need to pull in resources when money is tight. We understand that there's a large growing population of elderly, but find a way to advocate evenly and not discriminate against those of us with brown hair or those of us who live in a particular area. My second point is opportunity. We are grateful that this county board is structured in a way that people from our community and people from Manawa were able to come and speak. They came to finance committee meetings, they came to county board meetings, they came to health and human services meetings. There are probably a dozen people here today, and we're not going away. We always will bring forth the needs of our community. I spent 23 years working for Waupaca County. I've presented in this boardroom before as a public health nurse. And as a public health nurse, I was an advocate for those who could not speak for themselves or for those who needed an extra nudge, whose voices maybe weren't being heard. So that is why I'm here today, to advocate for those seniors in that community. I currently sit on the Nutrition Advisory Council, which was created about 10 years ago. When funds were cut back from the senior nutrition program, they pulled together a committee of citizens who were able to figure out how to incorporate more volunteers and keep that program running. And that's what I ask you to do moving forward. The community of Manawa, when they met, came up not only with solutions to the current issue in Manawa, but they brainstormed ways to tackle the $160,000 deficit that you're going to face next year in that program. Whether it be a congregate meal site that serves meals out to the entire community, whether it be a restaurant model, whether it be a partnership in each community where a church or a business partners with a senior center. There's so many options, but I don't want to exclude or have this budget exclude the input of the valuable community members.
Madam, your 3 minutes.
That's all I need to say. I'll tell you, my name is Dr. Janet Riley. I am currently a nursing professor at the University of Wisconsin. I teach public health nursing, and I teach nurses who will be leaders and executives. And in those roles, I feel qualified to be here, as well as being a citizen of this county for 30-some years. When we teach our leadership, we strengthen and strongly encourage advocacy, as well as having people involve those that are in the trenches. Not just the people at the top in administration, but also the people that are working with individuals within the community. So again, I advocate for that, and I'm going to close by saying if you look up the definition of a board member in the dictionary, one of the first things that comes up is advocacy. So please be cognizant in your budget decisions to advocate for everyone in your county. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Doctor. Did anyone forget to register that would like to come forth and speak, please? If you do, come forth up to the podium. Name and address, please.
Vicki Bartelt.
On the microphone, please.
I don't know what I'm doing here, so tell me. Vicki Bartelt, V-I-C-K-I, Bartelt, B-A-R-T-E-L-T, Manawa, N5417, County Road B, 54949. And I would just like to follow up with Janet's request. I've been a volunteer guardian for Waupaca County for over 30 years, and I've had, I never counted them, but I probably had 15, 20 people that I've taken care of, whether they be in a nursing home or whether they live in their homes. The value of a person living in their own home that I've been guardian for, and the value of the food service coming in is, it's one of those things that I advocate for the most to anybody that I talk to about being a guardian, because it gives you another set of eyes. I report to the county every year. I give an annual report, how their care, how they're being taken care of. But it also gives, and if I have to go to the doctors have to give reports on the cognizance of the person. And it's one of those things that it gives another set of eyes in there every day. It gives us that that person is taken care of every day. They can stay in their own home. They don't have to have nursing home care. And I know the budget's not always there, but it's, you know, I'm a volunteer. The people that have delivered the meals, my best friend is a volunteer for driving. So there's a lot of volunteers that make this effort possible. So if the least that can be done is to, you know, keep that budget and keep Manawa in the loop. So, but it's very important, and I just wanted to say that.
Thank you much.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to come forth? Anyone else? Anyone else interested in coming forth? Seeing none, entertain a motion to close the public hearing and open the annual board session. Supervisor Lear?
I make a motion to come back to the agenda.
You can just read it, Jan. Motion to close the public
Oh,
hearing. Anytime.
motion to close public hearing and open annual board session.
Thank you.
Okay, we do have a motion by Supervisor Lear, Supervisor Nygaard,
Second.
and a second by Supervisor Nygaard. Any questions or discussion? Seeing none, please vote.
Last chance to vote. Motion carries 25-0.
And I thank you all for the public coming up here and expressing your opinions. Well done, well said. Okay, we're down to item 9. Let's discuss the 2019 budget. Finance Director Heidi Dombrowski.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I don't really have a whole lot for you today. We read the budget at the last county board meeting. The finance committee has reviewed the budget and is passing on the resolution to the county board to adopt the 2019 budget. So if anybody has any questions no numbers have changed since the reading. It is still coming forward as presented to you at last county board meeting. So I don't have necessarily any discussion unless there's questions or comments from you as a county board.
Okay, before we do that, we'll need a motion to 2019 budget resolution number 32. Resolution 32, 2018-19. Is there a motion for approval? Mr. Nygaard?
I will move to approve. I didn't hit my button, but I will move to approve.
Okay. Thank you. Motion by Mr. Nygaard, even though he didn't hit the button. Supervisor Lair?
I'll second.
And a second by Supervisor Lair. She did hit the button.
Yeah.
Okay. Discussion. Mr. Smith?
I have a couple of items I'd like to discuss. One, I think first I want to make sure that the county employees understand my comments are not directed at them personally. However, as an elected official to this board, I feel as though it's imperative that I speak also for my community. When I look at the budget, and we've been told since April, and I realize that some of us are brand new county board members because it gets pointed out to us all the time. We were told we have a balanced budget. In my household, a balanced budget doesn't mean that I charge my children to live there. It means that my wife and I and my family live within the means that were provided by the income that we receive. In my community, my city, our balanced budget means that we live by the budget constraints given to us by the governor of the state of Wisconsin. We don't get to just raise our budgets. We have to live within those guidelines provided. Over the years, we've seen, I realize that Lakeview Manor was a private nursing home enterprise, but it still was a county-owned property. That was cut, taken out. That money went to, I believe, the facade upgrade at the courthouse, and then $850,000 went to the general fund. You're looking at a huge budget deficit for the Senior Nutrition Center. As Dr. Riley pointed out, our community was singled out prior to any meetings even being taken place. I think that money, because it came from the people who were in need, should have went back to DHHS. Their budget should not be short we have a 0.5% sales tax that was imposed many, many years ago when this courthouse was built. That 0.5% sales tax is still on even though the courthouse is paid for. We didn't use that 0.5% sales tax to fix and upgrade the courthouse. I believe it goes to the highway department now. I think when you're living within a balanced budget, in my city, we don't give raises if our budget can't sustain those raises. What we do is we give a bonus. If the departments live within their budget, they get a percentage bonus. That gives them something still for their state retirement. It doesn't give them a perpetual cost to the city. It's a one-time fee. I'm extremely upset that when I looked at the numbers, $946,000 in wages and benefit increases. Then in the paper last week was over $1 million in tax increases. How do we call that a balanced budget? We're not living within our means at all. But yet we're taking away from the people who paid taxes for years and years and years and need us today. We closed WCI. Where are those people at now? Who's taking care of them? Did that money come out of the budget? Did we lower the taxes to the taxpayers? No, we're increasing the taxpayers' levy again. We're talking about closing a senior nutrition center. I've brought up, why don't you talk to the nursing homes that provide the nutrition meals to their residents, to assisted living? I don't think that was even looked into by the county. But yet we have a balanced budget, so we call it, by raising over $1 million in tax levy. That's not a balanced budget. This county needs to start to live within its means. We owe it to the people not to take services away, because that's what we're doing. We've taken services away from the people who need it, but yet across the board, a 2% wage increase, plus the step raises, $946,000 in raises and benefits in this budget, but yet we're taking away from the people who are paying the salaries. I am opposed to this budget. I'm opposed to a lot of the things that are happening. And I just want that to be known. I want the 2,000 people that I represent to understand that I'm here to serve them. And I'm sorry if I offend anybody that works for the county. That's not my place here. My place is to watch out for the taxpayers and the people who elected me to be in that position. The same people who elected you to be in that position. And I think in the future the finance department needs committee needs to do a little bit. You need to live within the means, and the budget needs to be within that. We can't keep raising taxes to the county residents.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Supervisor Pullman?
I guess my point is also going to be in regards to the program, especially in Manawa, that was dropped in our lap at the last minute, and I do chair the Committee on Aging. Needless to say, I was very frustrated over that. And then to hear that position wasn't filled and told that it was HR that wasn't letting us fill it, which was false information. I have my concerns with this. If we can't afford, as Mr. Smith said, that we can't afford to take care of the senior programs, and we need to look at travel expenses for our employees that are going all over the country. We need to make sure that this is covered, and that all of a sudden mid-year in 19 that the money is taken away, moved somewhere else. That can't happen. It is budgeted, the amount that is needed for that program, and we do have a meeting on Thursday to discuss this further with the Committee on Aging and the Nutrition Committee. But this board needs to be made aware that there are things going on in this budget, in Health and Human Services regarding the senior programs that need to be watched, need to be corrected. Because if we can't afford to take care of them, then we can't afford to take care of a lot of things that are in this budget. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Pullman. Mr. Ritchie?
Thank you. As I'm not a very good speaker, I wrote this down, otherwise I just stumble and bumble through here. I read Heidi's article in the paper last week, and the thing that caught my eye on the raising the tax levy of the 3.74% was the $10 million that we spent.
Supervisor Ritchie, can you speak into the end of your mic? I'm sorry, we can't hear you.
I'm sorry.
That's okay, thank you.
As the tax levy increase would be 3.74%, I found that the item that caught my eye the most was the $10 million that we spent on interest on a $53 million loan since 2002. If we were to take that $10 million and put that into asphalt, into our roadway system, we could put a 2-inch overlay on 178 miles of roads. We've got several miles of roads here in this county that are in great deterioration. You stated raising the tax, or I'm sorry, Heidi, you stated raising the tax levy would shift borrowing from capital improvements into the next couple of paragraphs. You stated we're looking to spend even more money. If we were to eliminate the $1 million from the sheriff's remodeling program of the jail and the $4.3 million to the highway department, since the highway department currently has a $14 million budget already, we could then, oh, and I'm sorry, as the county board has shut down Lakeview Manor, they have received $9 million in additional funding there, and there's never enough money to go around. Back in the 70s, Waylon Jennings had a song out that said, we have a 3-car garage and we're still building on. Maybe it's time we get back to the basics of life. And if we were to start cutting back on some of these programs, these fluff programs, you have elderly that need supplemental food, and we're talking about putting $1 million into a jail renovation. I think we need to restructure this tax levy program. We need to start taking things out of the budget so that we can take the $4.3 million that we want to give to the highway system and start using that to pay down on the principal, which will eliminate the interest, so that we'll have more money to spend in the future on the projects that we need to spend money on. That's what I have, and I thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Ritchie. Clear, okay. Is there any other comments? Seeing none, please, what? Oh.
There's a lot of resolved on this one.
Yes, sir.
Let me read the entire thing. Be it resolved that there is hereby levied against the taxpayers properly of Waupaca County as equalized for the year of 2018 to include the sum of determined by the state of Wisconsin for the state tax forestry purpose, and be it further resolved that there be hereby levied against the taxpayers property of Waupaca County and equalized for the year 2018 the following sums: $6,838 as veterans relief, $22,042,587 as general tax, $5,091,960 as debt service tax. Be it further resolved that there be hereby levied against taxable properties of Waupaca County and equalization for the year of 2018, accepting the cities of Clintonville, New London, and Waupaca the sum of $53,000 for the bridges under Section 81.38 Wisconsin statute, and be it further resolved that there be hereby levied against taxable property of Waupaca counties and equalized for the year of 2018, accepting the cities of Clintonville, Manawa, Marion, New London, Waupaca, Wauwega, and the village of Fremont, Scandinavia, and Iowa, the sum of $1,049,235 for public libraries under Section 43.64 Wisconsin statute, and now therefore be it resolved that the year 2019 budget be adopted by the summary leveled as printed in the proceedings of the Waupaca County Board of Supervisors. Department heads shall operate their programs as presented in their proposed line item budgets.
Okay, please vote.
Supervisor Boyer, did you have? I did. Supervisor Boyer has, I would like to make a point. So I'm going to back out of voting so that we can go back to that.
Supervisor Boyer.
My question was, if we vote yes, Manawa does not get.
It's budgeted for 2019.
Chuck, I don't know if you want to come up and address that particular question about the funding for the Manawa Nutrition Site for 2019. My understanding is that it is budgeted as funded as it has operated in 2018.
So the funding is there for 2019 in this budget.
Yes.
Any other discussion?
Please vote.
Supervisor Leah? Last chance to vote. Motion failed, 17 to 8. It's a 2/3 vote, so it has to carry by 18.
I don't know. Let's
Okay, we're going to take a temporary adjournment here, please. Please take our seats and we'll reconvene. Okay, thank you everyone. We are reconvened back into order here. Our corporate counsel has a statement to make.
Thank you, everyone. I wasn't expecting this, so thank you for your patience during the adjournment. As a parliamentary procedure, we have a couple of different options as a body. One option is that the body can move to reconsider the vote that was previously casted that this budget failed 17 to 8 with one absent. The motion to reconsider needs to be made by someone voting for the motion, and it needs 2/3 of the members elect to pass. So that 2/3 of the member elect is 18. So motion to reconsider, if that action is taken, then we can if that passes and is successful, then we can bring back the 2019 budget as presented by Heidi, and a couple of things can happen. One is we can have more discussion. It appears during the break there was a lot of question about the 2019 aging funding. And so if there are more questions about that went unanswered and caused concern, we can add further discussions to that. And then simply re-vote on the budget as presented. The second option is that someone makes a motion to amend the budget as presented, with moving a funding from a particular place to another particular place in the budget, in the way to seek whatever goal you're achieving. So, and that would have to be something that obviously Heidi would understand the mechanics of, to know, can you take money from this particular fund and allocate it to this particular fund. So a motion to amend the 2019 budget could be presented. That would need to be a motion and a second. And again, because it's budgetary, it needs to be 2/3 of the members elect, which is 18. So that's one option. And then we get to we would vote on the budget as amended. Again, if that needs 18 to be successful, we ultimately get there. No more than 2 amendments, though, otherwise it gets crazy. So you can have a motion to amend the budget and have a second motion, amendment to that motion. So that's one option. The second option would be to adjourn temporarily this meeting and convene an emergency meeting within 2 hours of the Finance Committee. The Finance Committee then could rework the budget, and then we would recall this body into order, or into session again after the emergency finance meeting, and then vote on the new budget as reworked by the Finance Committee. So that's another option. we're concerned about the time frames here because Heidi has to get the information about our county budget to the state by the close of business November 15th, which is Thursday, and we are Tuesday morning. So those are some procedural options we can take to try to get a budget that we all agree on, or 2/3 of us agree on, so that we can move forward with what we need to certify to the state for 2019. So any questions about the procedural options? And we have to wait 2 hours for the emergency meeting because that's an open meetings issue. So we can no less than 2 hours for an emergency meeting of this body.
Mr. Nygaard?
Yes, if we do the second option to discuss the amended budget first and it fails, then can we go back to the first option and vote to just vote on the budget again? Is there some options here as a better order of doing things to expedite this, to open up for discussion, more discussion, and get things clarified so people are comfortable with their vote?
Well, the business end is done unless somebody does a motion to reconsider it. So right now, we don't have, then the option is, in my mind, sending it back to finance to rework something or having to reconsider and amending. So I think you're trying to talk about it before it gets really back to the body, if that makes sense?
Yep.
So it's not properly on the floor for discussion unless we properly bring it back.
If it's in order to move to do the amended budget at this point, I would make that a motion.
Yep, so to get there, we would do the motion to reconsider this. So we would need, and if you voted yes, then you can make that motion.
I would make that motion.
Okay, so let me get it on the screen, okay.
And the second can be, if you want to second it, you don't have to be a person who moved in support or against the other motion.
Just a second. Bear with me, I'm just typing this in.
Did you second it first time?
We don't have, we're waiting for Jill to type in the motion before we get a second, so, yeah. We're getting there. And again, this requires 2/3 of the members elect, which is 18, to pass.
Okay. So
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Nygaard. Mr. Fredwitz?
Mr. Chairman, I would second Supervisor Nygaard's motion.
Fredwitz, second Mr. Nygaard's motion. Question? Debate? Mr. Nygaard?
Could there be a little more clarification on
Aging funding.
So this is just debate on the motion to reconsider.
Okay.
Yeah, not on the substance yet.
Okay, I'm
So,
sorry.
Okay, no, we're good. We want some action. And I have Supervisor Hendrick, I have you requesting to speak on the motion.
Yes, could you repeat that motion?
Sure.
It's to reconsider Resolution 32, 1819, 2019 budget, which is up here as well.
I want to speak.
Anybody else?
I want to speak, but I can't get it on here.
We'll give you your microphone, Pat.
They're open.
Go ahead.
Thank you. I wish to say, on voting to reconsider, I think, from my perspective, we need to vote to reconsider so that we can have more discussion on what the budget is and exactly what you don't like about it, whether it be the tax levy, whether it be the Manawa situation, in order to get it back on the floor so that we can all say what we need to say, the ayes and the nays of the situation. I think we need to pass this so we can get this done today, because we're here today, we're here right now. Let's vote to reconsider. Thank you.
Okay, let's vote.
Last chance to vote. Motion carries 23 to 2.
Okay, we're back to the 2019 budget. So we will need a motion for approval.
We need a motion and a second
Yeah.
before we can debate.
Supervisor Craig,
I move to approve the 2019 budget.
there's a motion by Supervisor Craig to approve the 2019 budget. Mr. Vasquez,
I second that motion.
and then second by Mr. Vasquez. Now discussion. Oh, I'm sorry. Supervisor Pullman?
I guess I would like to see that we're gonna have a guarantee on the Manawa site or any of the other sites if we're, because I'm still being told that that's going to be eliminated.
And I guess Director Price, if you want to come up and talk about the tax. Thank you.
Like 2019 budget, please, thank you.
Thank you. So I'm not sure where the misinformation is coming from. It's in our budget. That's what our committee told us to put back into the budget. It's in there for 2019. And I would just say for the board's education is that we're looking at the nutrition program as a whole. And so, Manawa is not the only site that's struggling. We've got, low numbers in terms of congregate on-site meal, not in every site, but in some. And that's not just a Waupaca County thing, just from a statewide and national-wide thing. Meal site numbers are down. And so if you think about just your own thoughts and patterns on what you think about when you go to eat, is the meal site one of the first places that you choose to go. And so we've got lots of folks in our county that are eligible that don't go to the sites, and that's something that that's part of the whole conversation. And so our 2019 conversation with our committee is about knowing that there's a potential for a deficit going into 2019, but that we're going to be spending 2019 looking at how do we rectify that, how do we come up with different plans. There's already been conversations, and I know one of them was, Community of Manawa had stepped up and, kind of forced that conversation, which has been great in terms of problem solving and things like that. And so, that's something that we need to take a look at from a department standpoint about just the program as a whole, and not just any one community specifically, but the program as a whole is something that we're going to have to pay close attention to. And so it's been noted we have a joint committee meeting this Thursday with nutrition and aging, which is just another step in the direction of trying to figure out the program as a whole, and there'll be lots of data presented at that meeting as well for us to all think about problem solving there. But 2019, the aging budget is set, and that's what we're committed to across the board.
Supervisor Fredowitz?
Mr. Chairman, I just have a few things to state here. I realize everybody put a lot of work into this budget, and I also realize that some of the supervisors don't get a chance to hear all the discussion. I mean, that's the way the county board is is put together. Unfortunately, I always want to make sure that everybody has a clear understanding, because if you don't know what you're doing, then you shouldn't obviously vote in that direction. On the other hand, those of you that know me, I am a very a conservative individual. I love numbers. But what I'm going to say here hasn't to do all with numbers. I know Supervisor Smith talked about a balanced budget. I'm also town chairman. I understand balanced budgets and church president and so forth and so on. I also know that a few years back when the Lakeview Manor had to be closed, it wasn't a case that I really relished that idea. But there were enough supervisors in this room that came to the conclusion, if you're going to have a balanced budget, then why you're operating it when you're carrying a $1 million deficit each year from the taxpayers. The taxpayers are subsidizing it. So ultimately, when the vote was taken, I did concede and give in to, and I think it was almost unanimous to close it. It doesn't make it right or wrong. I understand the Supervisor Ritchie's comments somewhat. I think where the confusion comes there with the roads, the prior bonds had nothing to, some of the bonds with the roads we are eliminating going forward. So in other words, we have made such great strides in this budget to do away with borrowing and paying interest. And the $4 million that the county is going to spend, or approximately on roads, is well needed, because as he stated, there's a lot of poor roads. But in the past, we always went for a 3-year bond that tied together capital and roads for about 15, 16 million, and we're not going to do that going forward. And if I was a taxpayer and understood the amount of interest we're going to save, it doesn't take me long to figure that out, that was kind of a negative road to go down, and we finally got to that point. As far as the Manawa situation with the meals and so forth, I always was a strong proponent in that. As some of you know, up in Clintonville, I enjoyed going in there playing sheephead with those people. And I might have took a little money here. No, we didn't play for money. But I enjoyed that. I enjoyed conversing with these people, and I certainly know there's a need. And as our HR department had mentioned here a few minutes ago, that this is more of a national trend and not just a Manawa trend. But I hope we're not discriminating against Manawa, because then they might try Clintonville. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Predlitz. Supervisor Smith.
We keep hearing about the low congregate numbers. I would like to point out at the meeting in Manawa, it was said that prior to our nutrition site supervisor leaving, feeling like she was forced out or had to leave, we had 14 people coming daily. So somewhere along the line, the lady who led our nutrition site felt bullied, and she left. And the people left with her. That seems to be an internal problem. Like I said before, I mentioned in the meeting that why don't we talk to private industry, the nursing homes, the assisted living facilities. It's not just about meals. It's about the sheephead that Mr. Fedowitz discussed. It's about men's club. It's about ladies' club. It's about getting these people with each other. Well, then I was given a number last week, I believe, of $16 per person per meal. That's a ridiculous amount of money for what they're receiving. So if that's the number that this county is using for a meal, when you talk to the nursing home owner in Manawa, it's a third of that per day is what he assesses to each person. Because the state uses a number, I don't think anybody in this room would agree that the state is right on everything. We shouldn't just be following the state. We should be having our own finance committee, our aging committee, look into what is the true cost. If we don't have a true cost, we don't have a true budget. So it's not just about the congregate numbers. It's not about Manawa. It's about the people of Waupaca County, and that's why I voted no to the budget. It's about the people, not about the cities. We need to take care of the people. And if we're not getting true numbers, we're not giving true budget numbers. So, you know, I realize it's frustrating, but again, as Mr. Fedowitz said, we're not all given this discussion. So we come in late October, which we were late for our meeting in October because of the budget, and there was really no discussion. We could have had this discussion about this in October. It didn't have to wait till today. And that would give another 2 or 3 weeks for Heidi to go back and look at it again and present something different, an amendment. But I still feel as though this budget just isn't about DHHS in Manawa. It's, again, the 0.5% sales tax that was assessed because of this building. The building is paid off. We're still assessing that to the taxpayers of Waupaca County and the visitors to Waupaca County. It's not a balanced budget. It was supposed to go away. We need to start taking care of these people across the board. It's not about the elderly. It's about the young people who struggle daily to raise families and to buy homes. We need these people to stay in Waupaca County. And by assessing more taxes, they're not going to stay in Waupaca County. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Mr. Murphy?
Yes, I'm going to address my comments to the nutrition area. I chair the Health and Human Services Committee. I've been on board all the way through the discussion of the nutrition centers and Manawa's concern. Those good people from Manawa came and they talked to us, and we listened. And I can assure you that there was a sympathetic aura about the committee members towards the city of Manawa. That's why we reintroduced the money for the city of Manawa to continue on our budget we're considering right now. We took it out of our fund balance to do that. And as far as fairness, I don't think there's a member of my committee that doesn't want to have fairness across the entire board, whether it be Manawa or Marion or wherever it was. And we'll continue to look at that and continue, as Chuck said, to look at all options as far as to make it more efficient, to make it more user-friendly, to make it more what we perceive to be a good nutrition center or nutrition program, both congregate and also Meals on Wheels. So as far as the thought is that we cut it, yes, it was first there was a brought before our committee where it would be cut, but we sure, that first time, we sure changed that and put the money back. So I don't know where this perception that we're going to close Manawa comes from anymore. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Murphy. Any other comments, Mr. Muck?
Heidi, if I read this properly, our taxes are going to go up $9.31 on a $137,000 house. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So,
On the equalized value, on the fair market value.
right.
Yes.
So for a little less than $10 a year, our budget's still going to be presented, and we're going to be able to do everything we did last year with $10 extra per $137,000 household.
Yes.
So to me, for $10 next year, that's pretty cheap. I just got my paper in it, and the school tax is going to go up $122, $100,000. So for the county to go up $10 for a household, that's cheap. So I mean, what more can we do? And like Mr. Fedowitz says, they're restructuring the way we're doing our debt, but it's going to take years before we can catch up. So instead of borrowing money and spending $20 to pay the interest back, you're eventually going to get there. But Heidi's doing a great job. So just be patient, people. It's coming. It's going to take some time, but we'll get there. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Muck. Mr. Nygaard.
Thank you. I just want to say something from my own personal perspective. My wife and I are paying property taxes on 4 houses in Waupaca County, 3 in the town of Scandinavia, all 4 in the town of Scandinavia, and a building on Main Street, Waupaca, and about 500 acres of farmland. And I make my living as a farmer. So this will hit me. I'm not in support of this just because of all the reasons why. I think you've done the best job putting the budget together with what you've got to work with. This will hit me more than that person with the $137,000 home. I will be paying. My taxes will be going up. I am in support of this budget because I'm feeling in my heart that this is going the right direction. The county has adjusted their means of doing business to shift away from borrowing for just costs of operation. The debt will be going down over time. It's not going to happen overnight, but it will. It's just like anybody buying a house. That mortgage is big right away, but over time it gradually goes away. So I'm in support of this budget, but I just want people to know that I'm not some heartless person who's making everybody else pay. I am going to be paying. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nygaard. Mr. McClellan?
Thank you. Okay. A couple things I want to cover quickly is, you know, that $1 million it said on the front page of the paper, I had a call and it was from the area, one of Pat's people, but I said I'll take care of it. And when I pointed out to the person that on a $130,000 home, it was only going to go up approximately $10 because it was the county levy. And I said, but you really want to look at your school district tax. Town of Royalton is part of Waupaca, which had a large addition of money last year. And I said, when you look at the whole picture, it's not what it's meant to be. He was concerned that it was going to be 3% on his total, and I said, no, that's on the levy. He was real good after we got talking about it, and I could save the article for him, and that solved that. Second thing is, I'm really glad what Mr. Murphy and Chuck had to say, that all the stuff they have that's in the budget for next year is going to exist all year. That is correct. It's not going to be cut in a month or 3 months. And Mary Kay and I talked a little bit about that, and I want to make sure it's here for the whole year. What happens the following year, we'll deal with in the budget after that. So with this in mind, this is a no-brainer. $10, it's like Mr. Mark said, $10 on us. We can't help what the school districts do. We can't help what the municipalities do. They have roads also. So thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Supervisor Craig.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to say that being on the Finance Committee, I think we need to look at the entire picture of the county, of what the department heads have brought to the Finance Committee, and then what their committees have looked at and have done. I believe that a few years ago, we had a county board meeting ahead of this budget meeting where things were explained and supervisors were able to bring up concerns that they had. And I feel that with a new amount of supervisors on the board, it is very difficult to figure out what some of these departments were. As an example, I went back to Brian in Land and Conservation during our break and I said, tell me about that $5,000 we're giving to a demonstration farm. I didn't feel it was worth it to ask on the county board floor, but he gave me a very excellent explanation of what's happening. So we all can't know what's going on, but we all do have the ability, as someone else said in the room, to go to every committee meeting that we wish to go to as a county board member. If I want to show up at public property, I can. If I want to show up at Land and Water, I can. That's part of what it is. So if you have questions and concerns, bring them to the committee, ask about them, but I also realize that a lot of you are working and can't come to the courthouse every time that there is a meeting. But on the Finance Committee, when we look through the budget, be it the sheriff, be it the Department of Health and Human Services, be it whatever we were comfortable with how we were doing it and what we were doing. Number one, I think because we have gotten away from bonding for a lot of our capital projects. And I consider that excellent, that we are not paying interest for money that we used to. We are also looking at what is happening, and we're counting on the committees and the department heads to solve the problems that we may have individually sitting on this floor. I too am concerned about Manawa. Part of the people that go there are in my district, so I want to see it handled so that they get the chance, like all the other nutrition sites, to up their figures or change what we have to change. So I would encourage the people who voted nay originally on the budget to change their vote to aye, because we do need to have, we're gonna do it today, or we're gonna have an emergency meeting, and then we're gonna have to come back again. I think we can sit and discuss, and I'm pleased to hear all of the discussion of why people don't like what they see in the budget. That gives us a direction of what do we have to do? How can we change it? How can we refine it? How can we educate people? How can we have more discussion so that we can come to a conclusion? So I encourage you to go to the committee meetings whenever they are, and I also encourage you to vote for this budget because everybody has done a lot of work on it. I realize that it is an increase, but it is an increase, and we will all have to pay it should it pass. Thank you.
Thank you, Pat. Good points. I have to remind us too that the county board meeting we had previous to this, I think I asked any questions or discussion twice, and we didn't get any. And I asked Heidi Dombrowski, are you getting any calls or questions? She received none. So that I wonder why, if we've got a lot of questions, she would be the professional expert. And I always tell people, don't call me, because it's a $77 million budget. And there's some here and there and everywhere, but there's a professional that knows where and why. And but I encourage that too, Pat, but we just don't get any questions until today, which I think some of this could have been understood before the meeting, and some of it was misunderstood. So, Supervisor Pullman?
I still have concerns, obviously, where Manawa is concerned. There's just the one thing I guess I would like to see done is a little more transparency for everybody, especially new people on the board, as well as the rest of us that have been here longer. But that we get someone hired for Manawa, maybe out of the group that those people have brought forward should be given the opportunity to apply, not continue to just, I know they all of a sudden found somebody the last time I had a meeting that, I don't know where he came from, but the person needs to be hired that's going to relate well with the people over there, and maybe the congregate amount of people will increase again. Obviously, they went with Mona because they didn't like what was going on. So I think that needs to be looked at. And yes, I'm glad they put it back in the budget, but I'm still being advised that in all likelihood that site will not continue. So my concerns will continue until we get it taken care of on an ongoing basis.
Thank you, Supervisor Pullman. Supervisor Ellis.
Thank you, sir. Just a comment. I noticed last time when this budget was presented, and again today, we're looking at paying interest as if that's some kind of a horrible penalty. I've been in the financial business for 50 years. The last time I borrowed any real money, I paid 19.75% to borrow that money. And did it work out? It worked out fabulously. The point is that interest is the grease that makes the wheels run. And now that interest rates are roughly 1/5 of what they used to be, we're trying to avoid paying interest. I think we have the reverse problem here. I would rather borrow all the money and pay all that interest to service the citizenry of Waupaca County because interest is just a number, it's grease for the wheel. It has no, as a whole number, we're talking a 40-year low in interest rates across the board. We're just a one hair up from the absolute bottom. So there's a point in the game where avoiding paying interest when it's almost nothing is pretty dumb. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ellis. Mr. Hendrick? Oh. Supervisor Boyer?
Yes, if at any time during the year it is taken out of the budget, would the board get a chance to vote on that?
I'm
sorry. The Manawa nutrition.
Okay, I don't know how many different ways to say it. It's been put into the budget. We are not changing that. I don't know where the miscommunication is coming from. I would encourage everyone, if you have questions about the data and what's being presented or the decision makings that we're going to have for 2019 and moving forward, there's great information that will be presented at the joint meeting, and I understand not everybody can make those meetings, but if you can go, if you want to meet with Leah Klein, our aging director, separately to go over those numbers, we are open to any of those conversations. Again, the Manawa site is something that's in the budget for 2019, and we will continue to look at the whole nutrition program as we move forward.
Mayor Kay, you've spoken twice.
Supervisor Boyer? Supervisor Boyer?
You're out of order.
You did? Okay. Supervisor Lair?
Yes, I'm chair of the nutrition committee. And I have proposed for our meeting on Thursday at 1:30 here at the courthouse that we discuss the programs, because it's not just nutrition, it's transportation. And to formulate a outside committee of residents from all areas to sit in on this committee to discuss where we are going to go with the aging program. And I brought that up several times, and I hope to bring it up again on Thursday. And most counties right now, and I sit on another county's nutrition program, and they are looking at different avenues of providing Meals on Wheels. I'm supposed to be there at 12:30 today, and for the discussion. It is a problem trying to keep these centers viable, because we people that are sitting in this room are in that age bracket that should be participating at some of the food sites. But we're still agile enough to get out and make our own meals, go places, and it's the socialization that we strive for at the sites.
Thank you. Supervisor Smith?
I guess the question was asked from the back of the room. And it was asked in, I believe, October when the meeting was in Manawa, or September when we had the meeting in Manawa. When can we expect a nutrition site manager to be hired for Manawa? Because there were obviously 4 people brought forth, and there were people that night that volunteered. And I'm guessing from what I'm hearing now, no action has been taken on that. So to answer the question from the back of the room, when will that person be hired?
So just so folks know, kind of lay of the land of where we're at right now, we have an LTE in that position, and so I think folks are getting hung up on the language of LTE versus permanent coordinator assigned to the site. We've been given the task assignment to figure out the model that works for Manawa. And so to do that, if we were to come in with, so all I'd say is that the LTE position and the person that's been hired is from Manawa, he's from the community, and so that, I know that was part of the question. And so it gives us the flexibility right now to look at the different models that are out there with the LTE position in place. And so there is active efforts. We continue to talk about what do those models look like from sites. You know, the school district, I think, had some interest. That depending on what model comes up, could depend on whether or not we need a full-time project coordinator, nutrition site coordinator. And so I think we're using what we have in terms of the flexibility of an LTE position right now to figure out which models will stick, and then make some decisions about permanent hiring from that point moving forward. So there is somebody there. The meals are being served. Meals on Wheels continue to be served. And so we do have somebody in that position from the community providing the meals and providing the service.
Any other questions? Let's vote.
Last chance to vote. Motion carries 20 to 5.
Thank you very much. We'll take a short break, okay? Eleven D. Oh, yeah. Yeah. We're on ordinances and amendments right now.
It's just like a typical father gets up and all of a sudden you do it.
Yeah. Okay, we will continue on here on item 10, which is ordinances, amendments to the General Code of Ordinance A, 2018-663, amendment to Chapter 34, petition number Z-020-18, Town of Caledonia, James V. and Nanette A. Leland for a zoning map amendment from AR District to RR District. Good morning, Brian.
Morning. So this rezone is necessary because the Lelands are looking at subdividing that property. Right now, as it stands, they don't have the necessary development rights. So what they're looking at doing is they're looking to cut this into three parcels. In order to do that, they need to rezone into the AWT to receive the additional, or the rural residential district to get additional development rights.
Okay, we'll need a motion for approval. Mr. Nygaard?
Move to approve.
Motion by Mr. Nygaard to approve. Mr. Klissman?
Second.
And a second by Mr. Klissman. Questions or discussion? Please vote.
Last chance to vote. Motion carries 24 to 0. Just note that Supervisor Vasquez had to leave. That's changing our voting numbers.
B, 2018-664, amendment to Chapter 34, petition number Z-021-18, Town of Farmington for a zoning map amendments from RR to AWT districts to AR district.
So this rezone project is the companion of the project that we had dealt with last month for farm preservation implementation in the town of Farmington. So part of that project is some necessary rezones. So the reason why we need to go through these rezones is because DATCAP, or Department of Ag, Trade and Consumer Protection, only certifies 3 of our districts. That's PBRF, our forestry district, Ag Enterprise, and Ag Retention. And so all the people that we originally, this yellow here is the comp plan amendment or the farm pres that we've already adopted last month. The properties that are shaded or that have the hash marks in black, those are the properties that are either zoned AWT or rural residential. And so in order to make those people eligible to participate in the program, they would need to follow through with the rezone to a DADCAP certified district. And egg retention is the district that the town of Farmington has chosen and the Planning and Zoning Committee concurred with.
Could we have a motion for approval? Supervisor Murphy?
Move to approve.
There is a motion by Supervisor Gerald Murphy for approval. Mr. Zog?
I would second that motion.
And a second by Mr. Zog. Questions or discussion? Supervisor Craig?
Have all these people stated they want it to be rezoned?
Well, so the way we handled this project was that all these people that are listed on here as showing that they required to rezone, working with the town of Farmington, we sent them each a postcard to come to a meeting and so to say whether or not you would be okay or not okay with the rezone. And so we had that meeting, and there were several people that did show up. Otherwise, we had people that were calling either myself personally or calling the town chair, Carolyn, to let them know whether or not they were okay with that rezone. So they were actually notified. And we also received additional notification from the Planning and Zoning Committee. When we took the process in front of our committee, we also sent an additional notice to all those people requiring those rezones. In that process, we actually did have 3 people that, after the town of Farmington already dealt with it, we had 3 parcels that wanted to not go through with the rezone, and the committee reacted accordingly.
Other questions? Please vote.
Last chance to vote. Motion carried 24-0.
Okay, we're down to resolutions, 11A. Resolution number 22-18-19, service process fees, Sheriff's Office.
Now therefore be it resolved that the Waupaca County Board of Supervisors does hereby authorize the Sheriff's Office to raise its service and process fees to a flat rate of $55 inclusive of service up to 3 attempts at a service and mileage.
And if anyone has questions, I'm able to answer those on behalf of the Sheriff's Office.
Mr. Morick?
I move that we approve that motion.
There's a motion by Mr. Morick to approve that motion. Mr. Jonley?
I second that motion.
And a second by Mr. Jonley. Questions or discussion? Supervisor Craig?
Are we planning on redoing 6.10? Because in there it talks about the mileage for all civil process fees shall be at the same rate as set by the county board for all employees, which is the IRS rate. So are we planning on changing 6.10 of our ordinance so that it matches, this gets in there somehow?
6.00 says what?
6.10. C, the mileage rate charged for all civil process services shall be at the same rate as set by county board for all employees, parentheses, IRS rate, on parentheses.
It will have to be addressed.
And I can answer to that too. Al Crazel is working on it and has told me that he's in the process of pushing that through the committees as well. So it'll go to law enforcement, then legislative, judicial after this goes through. Okay. And then to county board.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pat. Any other questions? Please vote.
Last chance to vote. Motion carries 24-0.
B is resolution number 30, 18-19, child welfare.
Now therefore be it resolved, the Waupaca County Health and Human Service Board and the Waupaca County Supervisors does hereby request that the state of Wisconsin increase the children and family aid allocation to counties in the 2019-21 state biennium budget by $30 million annually in order to cover a greater share of the out-of-home care costs and increase staffing levels based on the caseload standards developed by the Wisconsin County Human Service Association, so with the CPS system can meet its obligations, and be it further resolved that a copy of this resolution be sent to Governor Scott Walker, Department of Children and Family Secretary Eloise Anderson, Department of Administration Secretary Ellen Nowak, and area legislators and the Wisconsin County Association.
Supervisor Johnson?
I move to approve.
Motion by Supervisor Johnson for approval. Mr. Zog?
I'll second that motion.
A second by Mr. Zog. Discussion? Please vote.
Last chance to vote. Motion carries 24-0.
Item C is resolution number 31, 1819, a donation acceptance.
Now therefore be it resolved that the Waupaca County Board of Supervisors accepts the Peterson Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram donation in the amount of $1,969.
Supervisor Craig?
Move to approve.
There is a motion by Supervisor Craig for approval. Supervisor Hendrick?
I'll second that motion.
Second by Supervisor Hendrick. Questions? Supervisor Ritchie?
Does this mean we're gonna change our current $1,000 donation acceptance to $2,000 now?
No, this resolution allows us to accept it because it's over $1,000. This resolution will allow us to accept it.
So it's a one-time thing?
Yeah, this is a one-side donation.
All right.
Thank you. Any other questions? Please vote.
Last chance to vote. Motion carries 24-0.
Item D we already did, so now we're going to go to, let's go to new highway facility update by our highway commissioner, Mr. Casey Byersdorf, please.
We'll start with what you got on the screen.
This was also added to your packet under the more section this morning.
Okay, as we get started, I think I won't sit here and talk a whole lot. I think pictures sometimes are worth more than the update that I had given just 2 weeks ago. So you would have received this packet that Jill had sent to you just recently digitally. We're not doing the paper handouts anymore unless it's requested. But at this point, we'll go through it page by page. In the executive summary, the month of November, a lot of the site utilities have been installed. The goal initially this late fall was to get everything underground put in before the ground basically froze up on us, and now it's starting to freeze, and so that's a good thing. We've got everything in the ground completed. The only thing we need to stick in the ground as far as underground utilities is the gas main, and they aren't going to directional bore that gas main in until the actual structure is in place, so it comes out exactly where the gas meter is going to be fastened to the building. So that's kind of a big picture of what's been accomplished with underground site utilities. We'll go to the next page. The excavation of the concrete footings and then the concrete footing walls, that's in full force as stated in here. The pictures will show our progress over the last couple weeks. We're pretty much done taking that beneficial reuse material, which is the recycled foundry sand. We're at a standstill with taking that anymore just because we don't need it anymore. We've come to the point where our crews now are, we've made a decision on site that there is a soft spot, roughly 82,000 square feet due to the excessive rains this fall that just needs to get cut out. It's going to be in a high traffic area in front of our salt storage buildings on the north side of the facility, and we're going to make it as hard as we possibly can. So We're currently undercutting approximately 1 foot, and we're gonna supplement that with 4-inch breaker rock where it would have been clay material. So it's just, we have to meet our footing bearing pressures with that. Moving on to the next one, our schedule summary. The water and sanitary lines that are going to be owned by the city of Waupaca have been primarily all installed except through the south driveway entrance. You're going to end up seeing a total of 3 fire hydrants in front of this facility because they're required to be every 300 feet on a main. The third one has not been installed yet just because we need to do some construction out on County Highway A in order to make that all blend in and match, and that project won't take place until 2019's construction season. Other than that, there's 2 driveway entrances that can be used to make the main facility keep progressing along. Our sand storage excavation has begun. You're going to start seeing the salt storage and the sand storage sheds get erected either the 2nd or 3rd week in December. So we're going to have salt sheds out there. You're going to see the steel that houses the interior framing and holds the big cranes start to get this installed November 22nd. So pretty much everything below ground is going to start becoming where it actually looks like something at the surface, and all the work has been hidden by dirt. So you're going to see stuff above ground right after the gun deer season, according to Myron's project plan. Next one is a photo we'll go through in my drone video that I show monthly, a little bit more in depth, but you can see the project progress from that drone. Keeps taking a photo at the same spot. You can see pretty much all the footings that are getting dug in. It's a big project. I'm not going to go way into detail with it too much, but I'd like to go next into the drone video if that plays.
I have to remember which one it is, bear with me. Oh, I mean.
Okay. This was November 6th, so it should be the most. It should be. Yeah, that's only 7 days ago, yes. So our construction foreman has a drone, and he flies the site with his kid who knows how to run it. And this is the updated progress. You can see them little white circles are all of the storm sewer drains that collect the water collection, and then it all ends up getting dumped into that pond in your upper right-hand corner where the sediment falls out of the whatever's collected in the stormwater, and then it discharges into the wetland just to the west of the entire project site. He's going to kind of turn the drone now a little bit to the left, and you kind of see the footings. That sand spot right in the lower left, that's our fabrication shop, or our metal fabrication shop. It's taking it kind of slow. A lot of contractors so far have come in, did their work, and already out. They're out the door. There's not a lot to do for like underground storm sewer. He's pretty much done. The guy that puts in the conduit for the electrical lines is pretty much done. Folks did a lot of delivering for the Waupaca Foundry sand. They're pretty much done. So you're seeing different phases and steps occur. In order to move on to the next step before folks will put geofabric over the entire site, we had to take a fully loaded truck and proof roll it just to verify that there were no soft spots. That's where we found that the north driveway entrance area north of the shop needs to be undercut because we just don't meet our soil bearing, what do you call it? You proof roll it. If it sinks in more than an inch, it doesn't pass. You don't dare put gravel on it. So them areas all on the north side of the building now are going to be undercut, and we started that yesterday. Notice that there's one spot going into the middle of the entire area that had a bridge over the footings. Now that's being removed. Now we're going to start backfilling that with sand. The administrative area, all the interior plumbing has been installed, and they may, if everything goes well and the temperatures are where they need to be, they might start pouring that concrete slab as soon as next week. So you're going to start seeing big concrete slabs get poured. 2 weeks from today, November 27th, I was invited to go to a tour where in Valders, where Spancrete is actually constructing our great big stone walls, and I'm just going to see our walls get built. So it's kind of neat to be part of that. I've invited along some of our members from our core planning team. I'm sure I didn't mention it to Highway Committee yet. If you want to see the walls getting poured with the brown colored chips sprinkled on them, we're going to be able to see all that. So that kind of concludes the photo, Jill, or the tour of the new highway shop. It brings it to you with more words than I can describe. So the photos are just the same thing the drone showed. So with that, if you've got any questions or want to come see the shop and get a tour while it's getting built, please call me and I'll take you out there. But it's cold.
Supervisor Craig?
What does undercut mean? When it went down that inch, what are you gonna do?
Yeah, so when we leveled off all of the clay and we made it so before we could put the 1 foot of gravel on it, before we put the blacktop, what happened is you take a fully loaded truck and you proof roll the subgrade, which is the clay or the foundry sand in below, and if that truck sinks in more than an inch, it's probably going to mean that if you add that gravel and then the pavement, there's going to be deflection in your asphalt surface and it's going to break up. So to eliminate that, you undercut that subgrade, the soft stuff that settled more than an inch, and you supplement it with breaker rock or stone, and it helps it float, basically. But it's only the top 6 inches really that's super saturated due to the wet fall that we had. So that's about an $80,000 change order. If you're looking at where we take monies from to do that, in this project we have a contingency fund, and that was right around $1 million for significant things. After not wheeling and dealing, but negotiating with all the contractors and figuring out who's putting in the overhead doors, who's putting in the windows, a lot of these contractors had the same stuff on their same contract that the other one did. So by taking it off of this contract, it's actually put money, we've got more money in our contingency fund than we've even started with. So we're kudos to that. This undercutting is going to now take out of the contingency about $20,000 more. So we've paid Myron 2, working on 3 times right now. I think we've paid them, if my memory is somewhat correct, a little over $300,000 so far towards this $24.4 million project. So it's going to get expensive as we start receiving all these concrete bills, and the steel is going to start showing up. Our cold storage building is on site. It just needs to get assembled, and that's going to get started putting up the week of November 26th as well, barring the weather.
Any other questions for Casey? Thanks a lot. Very good report.
Thank you.
Excuse me. As Mr. Ellis so respectfully said before, it was Veterans Day weekend, and what I usually like to do, and you're only running late, but we got enough time for this. I like the veterans, you elected officials and staff to stand, and then I'll call on you. I want you to know your name and the service you were in and anything else you want to talk about. You veterans, please stand. And stay standing, please. Mr. Muck.
I was in the National Guard for 6 years during the Vietnam era. Served in Wisconsin, never left.
Okay. Mr. Spearings?
You'll get it someday.
Yeah.
U.S. Army, 65, 67, Vietnam era.
Okay. Johnson?
Dave Johnson, Marine Corps. Served in when we floated around Cuba for a few weeks.
Good. Mr. Ellis?
Bob Ellis, United States Navy, served from 64 to 66. It was all Vietnam. I made 3 crossings and back on the Pacific, led some amphibious landings, and it was kind of an exciting time.
Mr. Moore?
U.S. Army, 69-7, spent a year in Vietnam. He said it was very exciting.
Yeah. Where are we back here?
John Francis, I was in the U.S. Navy from 93 to 98.
I'm Casey Beiersdorf. I was in the United States Army National Guard. Just completed 20 years. Got out as a first sergeant. Iraq and Afghanistan, a couple of years each.
I'm Jeff Simons, regular Army from 83 to 98.
Didn't see any combat duties, but I did deploy to Korea and Germany, and retired in '98 with a 15-year retirement.
And Jesse Cup, York County Veteran Service Officer, 10 years in the Army Reserve, 1 tour in Afghanistan.
I just, we want to thank, anybody else I missed? Just want to thank you so much for your service to our country, and as we sit here, free people protecting our great country. You know, I'm a sports guy and I have sports heroes, I always have, but you people are the real heroes. You really are. Thank you very much. Oh, and the treats are Mr. Vasquez, but you have to catch him some other day and say thank you. So, with that, anything else? I think we're ready to have a motion to adjourn. Mr. Hendrick?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion by Mr. Hendrick to adjourn. No second, so I guess Mr. Moore? Second by Mr. Borg. We are adjourned. Thank you very much.